Okay, so this is prove all things. And Christ is going to allude to all of these stuff right now. And I'm even going to prove it with the New Testament for those who say this has been covered by the blood of Christ. No, Christ assumed that you have read and know that. He says, according to it is written, right? Haven't you not read? You see what I'm saying? So he's going to tell you this. And I'm going to prove that here as soon as we get into that point in the beginning of the garden. All right. So we're getting into that knowledge. That knowledge right now. So it says that the Lord God said, it's not good that man shall be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. Not create, not formed, but to make. And make is another word for form. Make, past tense for form. By putting parts together, combining substance, construct. Create, but mostly construct, assemble, put together, produce, to form. So they're using these words very, very specifically. And out of the ground, God formed every beast of the field. So form was used again because you form the modern cow from wild cattle, right? Or the modern pig from the wild boar. So form every beast of the field, specifically, not of the jungle or of the savannah or the desert or the rainforest, but of the field specifically, and every bird of the air, and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called each living creature, that was his name, creature of creations. So Adam gave names to all the cattle and the birds of the air and every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper compared to man. And then the Lord God caused a deep sleep, unconsciousness, to fall upon Adam, and he slept, and he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in his place. So, a lot of people can, debate about what the meaning of that is. There is one rib-like organ on a male that a female does not have that is used to give life, and that is the seed where sperm flows through. It is a rib-shaped organ that is on the male. It's obviously they're not going to talk about this in the cathedrals and in the synagogues and the church around children. So they use a metaphor to kind of hope that you can put this in perspective, that the seed of life is taken from man, okay? And he made into a woman, he brought her unto the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she is taken out of man. Now, I don't know. That would be almost suggesting that he married his daughter. I don't know. So that's kind of weird. But I'm going to prove something here. It says, therefore, meaning the continuation of what was just being said, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So all of the things that we're talking about here, this summarized, we're supposed to come to the conclusion that a man shall leave his father and mother. Where's the mother up to this point? You see what I'm saying? And be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So let's look at what Jesus said about that. We're going to go to Matthew's 18. And Matthew's 19. I think I made that mistake before. And a lot of what I just said, we're talking about Jesus. The Pharisees came to him, testing him, and saying to him, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any just reason? Matthew's 19:4, and he says, Jesus is he in this situation. Jesus, all right. He said to them, have you not read that he who made them at the beginning, made them male and female? So that's where we already established that male and female, Genesis 1:27, at the beginning, in the beginning of the creation story, male and female was conceived. He confirms that. You see what I'm saying? And said, for this reason, a man shall leave his father, because male and female was conceived in the beginning. Therefore, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh in a child, right? So 1 + 2 = 3 in this situation. Those two become one flesh, evenly yoked. So then they are now no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate. And he's also probably talking about himself, because he was fatherless. He wasn't adopted by his father Joseph. And as a result of that, he had to be taken to Africa. He went to Africa in refuge. Out of Egypt, I call my son. You see what I'm saying? So his beginnings, look, it goes all the way down to Joseph. We're going to break all of this down. But look, Joseph being arose from sleep, just like Adam was put to sleep, did as the angel of the Lord commanded, took him and his wife, and did not know her until she had brought forth her firstborn, and called this Jesus, right? If you notice, it will say, before we go here, in the second verse, it's going to tell you that out of Egypt I call my son. All right, so, and that is a part of, they departed to Egypt. Egypt is Africa. It departed, just like everybody fled to Africa. Abram fled to Africa because he was from the same place. He fled with. So here we go. So it says Isaiah, I think it's the prophet here, if I'm going right. But when he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night, and departed for Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod. If you look up, Herod died he lived between 74 and 4 BC. So he actually died before Christ. But according to the New Testament, Jesus was born during his reign, and he ordered the massacre of the innocents. So, whatever. You can debate that later on. But Herod, who died in 4 BC, but anyway, that might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the Lord through the prophet, saying, out of Egypt I call my son. So the point I'm trying to make is that Africa, none of this could have taken place Africa unless it involved Africa, and they were going by the words that were written here in Genesis. So we proved a couple things there, that Jesus confirms a couple of those things that we had established in Genesis here. Okay, so we're going to go back to Genesis as soon as my computer decided. Genesis 2 we were in. I'm trying to close this up and get into the garden. Tree of knowledge off limits. Tree of life was not said to be off limits. The tree of knowledge, because knowledge is what leads to the freedom of yourselves. God took the man who he had put in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it. So where do you think he got it from? They just told you where he got it from. He was an African man. All right? A man of the dust. A man with the nostrils. Right? If you breathe life into someone, you breathe into their lips, not their nostrils. The nostrils was told to us to tell you, to give you a greater identity to this man. That the element, like I told you, the son of man versus the sons of God. And we'll get that dynamic even in Christ, even deals with that constantly, and we'll deal with that later. But we got to finish this Garden of Eden. So, and putting him in the Garden of Eden. Eden is now mentioned for the second time. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may eat, but of the tree of knowledge you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. So when I'm telling you, and the reason why I'm highlighting that is because it says, in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. That's a death threat. Just like the KKK would give you a death threat if you was to educate a slave, you would be threatened by death, be hanging from a tree, like strange fruit, fig tree, like a fig. But we'll get into even that later on. But the point that I'm trying to make is that if Adam does not die in the day that he eats the fruit, then there is a flaw in this statement. Okay? That's what I'm trying to say, is that you have to say, if he doesn't die, that, and also that this is a death threat, to keep him from knowledge. Not the tree of life, but knowledge. All right? And the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone, and he made him a helper compared to him. So we went through that, and then he formed, and then Adam named, and he caused a deep sleep, and then Adam woke, and he got his woman is there. But keep in mind, Adam was unconscious, so he didn't know how that woman got there. Okay? But we just confirmed that Christ confirmed what I said earlier, that man and woman was created in the beginning in 1:27, and therefore a man shall leave his father and mother. That feminine aspect has been blown out, just like I said, with the Sphinx, that feminine thing. Now let's establish that real quick with the Eye of Ra. The Eye of Ra, or Eye of Re, you see the serpent surrounding the sun disk. In ancient Egyptian, they call it mythology compared to Romans and Greeks, that functions as a feminine counterpart to the sun god Ra. Okay, as you can see a picture here of Ra, the sun disk is there, and then the serpent surrounds that sun disk, right? That's pretty significant. The serpent that surrounds the sun, almost in the womb of the serpent, right? And the serpent also, you got to keep in mind that the serpent buries her eggs into the earth, and then out of the earth, the seeds action, the offspring hatch. So it's as if the woman and the earth are both part of that birth process. And then from that, man has created certain principles, divine principles in which they live by. But God, Ra, right, had become one of the most important gods in ancient Egyptian religion. All right, now they're not saying mythology is religion. Identified primarily with the noon sun. Okay, Ra or Re was believed to rule in all parts of the created world, of the sky, the earth, and the underworld. He was the god of the sun, order, kings, and the sky. He was portrayed as a falcon. Notice not a human, right? Because it has a specific reason, because of his perception with the sky god Horus, right? Horu, Hor, Her. Keep that in mind. Her, Horu, Horus. But we're going to keep that in mind. The key thing is that it is the serpent is the symbol of the feminine counterpart of the sun god Ra, and a violent force that subdues his enemies. Okay? So it's subduing the enemy by revealing knowledge to Adam and Eve. This is what I'm entertaining. But as we go back, they were both naked. The man and his wife were not ashamed. Now, when I see naked, I think of ignorant, right? Innocence, right? When it's really no fault to you that you're ignorant, it's considered innocence. And when it's your fault, like if you're drunk in the vineyard, like Noah's aspect, it's ignorance. Okay, but it does means to expose to harm, unprotected, vulnerable, defenseless. Okay, without leaves. Okay, without clothes. Okay, so a tree, plant, or atom without leaves, all right, is also an aspect of it as well that we have to keep in mind, because we're going to be talking about the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, right? So they were both naked, and the man and his wife were not ashamed. They weren't ashamed because this means they were innocent. They didn't know no better. So their state of ignorance or unconsciousness was because of innocence. Now, the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. Okay, now keep in mind that the word cunning was changed from subtil. Subtil is actually factually how a serpent moves or snake moves, okay? Actually, have to look that word up. It's kind of a word that's kind of obsolete. But if you look it up, it's subtle, way and manner, okay? The definition of subtle, sometimes spelled subtle, is something that is indirect or very small distinction between two things. An example of subtle used as an adjective is a subtle request, such as where someone mentioned their first musician, or basically like a hint. Or I would say subtle is how a plant grows or a flower grows very subtly. It's growing, you can't really see it, but it's subtle. And also how a snake moves. But cunning is given in a demonizing description. All right, it's saying that having or showing skill in achieving one's end by deceit or evasion. And I'm telling you, that is something that has been added to the story to give you an idea going into the story of what the character is. I think that's cheating because it's telling you what to think of the character rather than allowing you to make up your own mind. But the old King James Version says subtil, which is more accurate to me, but cunning, okay. But it's not the animal trying to receive an end by deceit. So you got to ask yourself, is the serpent being deceitful? And that's why I highlighted that if Adam don't die in the day, it's going to make a difference than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God had said, you shall not eat, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. So it's confirming that of all the trees you can eat, but God has said you shall not eat the tree in the midst of the garden, right? Now the serpent says you will not surely die. So he's questioning just like I questioned. If he doesn't die in that day, then that's not the truth. It says, for God, notice he's not saying Lord God, he called him God. For God knows that in the day you eat it. So he's dealing with in the day aspect of it, right? In the day, even in the Old Testament, ye eat thereof. Of it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. It's very important to hone in on that because in the old version it says you will and ye shall be as gods. You see what I'm saying? That's a big difference in how you translate that. Not only is it turning monotheism from polytheism in the King James Version of the Bible itself, that's a debate within itself, but he's saying this, you be as gods. And this one says you will be like God. And the reason why it says you be like God, because it's already telling you that God has this information. That's what's making him God. And he has the land. Now the serpent didn't call him Lord God. The narrator called him Lord God because he has the land. He was called God after the land aspect had been planted. He's planted the seed. He's separate. He partitioned the land for his garden. Now he's a landlord, and he put the man in that garden, who he is the master of. Lord, I didn't look that up. Lord is a synonym for master, ruler, leader, chief, superior, monarch, sovereign, king, emperor. It just means someone or something having power, authority, or influence over another or others. Okay, so that Lord is giving you the rank, and God, but the very important understand that's a huge difference. Not only does it take polytheism and turn into monotheism, but it's telling that you with knowledge will open your eyes and you will be as gods, not like God, but as gods. And that is the reason why this God and this Lord is keeping Adam from the tree. He don't want his eyes to be open. He want him to be naked, ignorant, and working in the garden. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. Now, we're going to pause to look at that pattern, like we said earlier, how the word created was used 3 times. That was done on purpose. Now, notice how it says that the woman saw the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes. So it's telling you use eyes, 2 things having to do with eyes, 3 things having to do with eyes. The third eye is wise, which is wisdom. The third eye being considered wisdom. It's telling you that nothing is wrong with her 2 eyes before wisdom is mentioned. She was able to see that the tree was good for food, and she was able to see that it was pleasant to the eyes. So you're going to check out fruit. Looks good. All right. And the tree was good for food. All right. And it says judge not the tree by its bark, but by its fruit. So she's seen that that it was pleasant to the eyes as well. So it and a tree desirable to make one wise. So the desire of the tree to make one wise. Let's see, a tree to be desired to make one wise. So if you desire wisdom, take of this tree. You see what I'm saying? So what she do? She took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. Now, she did not seduce Adam. Why are we acting like the woman is responsible for the fall of man? The Bible didn't say that. The story is not telling us that in the old and in the new version of King James. He was there with her. And let's say that she didn't have the fruits of knowledge. She got a knowledge and she did not share that with her husband. What type of woman would that be? They just got married. What kind of marriage would that be? You see what I'm saying? So this was almost like a catch-22, and it is provable that this individual that we call the master in the story, he did the same thing in Exodus, where he put enmity between Cain and Abel, and he put enmity between Moses and the Pharaoh. He said, I'm going to harden his heart. Say these things and I guarantee you that he's going to harden his heart. I'm going to harden his heart. He setting up the African Pharaoh. So that's what I'm saying. The Africans are being set up. They're being cursed. And we're going to get into that here in Genesis 3. It ends with the curse on these people who were just formed. Okay. But the point I'm trying to make is that she did not seduce her husband. She simply shared the information with her husband who was with her. And then like she went back and gave him ultimatums or anything like that. All of those things that were taken back out of Greek mythology. The story of Pandora, the story of Eris, the apple, right? But keep in mind, the point that I'm trying to make here is the out of Egypt I called my son, 4 BC. We mentioned the fruit. We took of his fruit and ate. She gave her husband and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were open. That's exactly what the serpent said would happen, right? The serpent said, for God knows in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be open and you will be like gods, knowing good and evil. So that's what he said would happen. It happened. Now let's see if they died. And they knew that they were naked. That's the point. The knowledge that they were naked. They were no longer innocent. Their innocence was lost. That's the only form. That's the deception. That's the cunning part. They died in the sense of innocence, not literally. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. They sewed fig leaves. Fig is the only fruit mentioned in the Bible. The fig. A soft pear-shaped fruit with sweet dark flesh and many